Can you tell me a little bit about the scam that was reported yesterday?
So yesterday we had a fraud call that came in. A gentleman in Washington County received a letter and a check. The letter claimed to be from Publishers Clearinghouse and some other companies that are associated with that. Received a check for an approximately amount of $9,700, and the letter indicated that he had actually won $750,000, and it had the check, the initial check, which actually wasn't mentioned in the letter.
And what is that? You mentioned it's mail-in checks, so these are called. Can you talk about those, or I guess mail-in scams? Can you talk about those overall?
So what can happen is they'll mail a check in, and they're expecting you to try and deposit that check, and usually is associated with a number to call as well. So what they'll do is when that check goes in, it's a fake check, and that check will bounce. That can result in loss to the person, not just in the money that they've lost from that, but also the fact that they're going to have a bounce check fee and possibly any overdraft fees if they're trying to spend that money that was deposited in the meantime. What they're hoping will happen is that you'll call the number that's associated inside the letter, and that at that point they're going to try and obtain some more personal information from you to be able to obtain social security numbers, checking account numbers, routing numbers for your bank, so that they can then defraud and try and steal money from you in that manner.
And how do they get that information? Is that just like they kind of get trust with you and you share that with them, or can they get it another way?
Yeah, so they're trying to build that trust. They're trying to say, hey, we want to get you the $750,000, but we need to have your bank account information so that we can send the money to your bank. They're going to ask for the routing and the account numbers. And then they're going to ask for things like your social security number. For tax purposes, they'll claim. They'll ask for your name and things along in date of birth, all those things that they're trying to use to either steal identity or gain access into your accounts themselves.
Okay. And what are the most common types of scams that you see around the holiday period and the new year?
So across the board, we get a lot of government scams, different government agencies calling and attempting to gain information. Of course, they're not really from the government agency, and these scammers will actually do a lot of research. They're using programs to spoof numbers, so the number that they call from will actually appear to be from, example, the sheriff's office. They can use a computer program that will utilize our phone number that will show on the caller ID, although they're not actually calling from our office. They will utilize people's names. My name has been used because it's been in the news and printed. They'll say they are Sergeant Alfred from the Washington County Sheriff's Office. They will include our phone number, and then they will say that there's an active warrant or there has to be restitution from courts, and they're willing to accept that money over the phone. Deputies, officers don't take money from people. That's not the way these things work. And they usually are attempting to gain these monies either via iTunes gift cards, Visa cards that you can buy at Walmart, or Bitcoin exchanges.
And are the holiday period, is that a time that you see more scams than usual? Is it a busy time for scammers?
Well, a lot of times in holidays, they'll also try and use charity work to gain that money from people. But the main goal is to, one, gain access to your accounts or gain personal information so that they can then continually scam throughout the year and continually move on along those lines.
Can you talk to IRS scams a little bit?
So I would expect IRS scams to start spiking up as the new year approaches. They're going to say there's back taxes owed and everything along those lines. They're trying to, once again, same MO, they're trying to gain your personal information and get you to give them money over the phone, whether it be those gift cards or Bitcoin. IRS doesn't contact people by phone. IRS typically contacts people by mail, and they are expecting you to call in. Cautions on a lot of these issues is if you're ever suspecting a scam, contact law enforcement. Contact the people themselves directly through numbers that you research, not on what they're giving you via email or in a letter from the mail or anything along those lines.
How are scammers evolving to find ways to continuously trick people?
Well, typically, they're using technology a lot more. So they are spoofing numbers. They're trying to appear more legitimate as actually people from the agencies. And when you're dealing with government scams, they are also tracking better within computer programs and using that technology to know who has been susceptible in the past. And that's why when you get those scam calls, if you start a conversation with those calls, they put you on a list that you are somebody who's willing to engage with them, and they'll actually call back more often.
What is the cyclical effect of scammers and ways that they consistently reinvent themselves?
Scammers are always trying to find new ways to find people, to take advantage of them. We will see the warrant scams that go up from government agencies, and that'll happen real heavily in an area. And then that will go away as more people become wise to it. They'll find a different scam, either mail or email scams in an area, and that are attacking the same vulnerable people. They'll utilize that scam for a certain period of time. After that one runs its course, they'll revert back to these old scams that we've seen before, such as the government scams with the warrants, IRS, and those things. Then they'll move back into the email and mail scams where they are trying to take advantage of people who believe that they've won awards or that they need to invest in. They basically come in and they say, you've won this award, but you need to send us a processing fee before we give it back, give you that actual money. They take that money, there is no award, and so they'll then, once that's been hit, they'll know that person is vulnerable to these type of scams. Then they'll hit them with a government scam, or they'll hit them with a identity theft, anything to try and get their account numbers, their personal information, and their money.
How does law enforcement track down scammers and keep them accountable?
And that's the biggest problem, is most of these scammers we can't track down. You're dealing with international people. The call centers in India, I know, spiked for quite some time. Large, huge buildings full of people that were just calling nonstop. They're using computers to sound, to get rid of their accents, and so that they sound more legitimate, and they will just constantly be using. It's hard for us local law enforcement to chase those things. When you're talking big money amounts, sometimes the FBI can handle those, and we do work with them when we can, but their caseload gets so large it can sometimes get lost in the files.
What are the main trends across all scams that people should look out for?
So one, never send any money to anybody you don't know. So you don't want to accept money from anybody you don't know, or an organization that you don't know. If you're not expecting a check from a bank or a company and you get one randomly, it's probably not legitimate. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Government will never try and accept money from you over the phone. We are typically going to have you come in when we're dealing with things along the lines of warrants and issues with that. We're going to have you come in either to the court or to our facilities themselves to pay those things. We're not going to take money via Bitcoin or via gift cards or anything along those lines. Those should be large red flags. We've seen some scams of people using AI where they have loved ones. All you need is a few minutes of recording from either TikTok, YouTube, or anything else, and you can replicate that person's voice via AI. They can call their loved ones and request ransoms and everything else. Always call and verify. Don't call the numbers that are on the actual letters or any emails or anything you see specifically. Look up the number on your own, do the research, and call directly to verify if this is a real thing.